Live everywhere.
Daily Co's Radio on netrootsradio.com presents
David Waldman. Kagro in the Morning Show. Now, here's David Waldman.
Hey, good morning, everybody. How you doing? It is Wednesday, November 20th, 2019. Time for yet another show. I found a note that I've left here for myself from yesterday that says, I will fail, which is amazing because I left this note for myself. And not only that, but I'm probably right, which is really the worrying part in all this. It occurs to me this morning as I see yet more lovely people, I'm sure, intelligent, capable, and generous, who served in the Obama administration, are publishing on Twitter their fantastic and even inspirational notes that they left for their successors in the Trump administration. And I'm beginning to wonder whether it might not be the case that, it could be that in the hands and in the eyes of the Trumpers who followed them into office, finding these lovely notes was just taken in the wrong way. Not that it's a valid way and, sometimes we just perceive things differently, but rather that these people coming into office were malevolent, vicious, venomous bastards, and we knew that about them. And yet, Obama and the people working for him, being the adults in the room, said, well, the right thing to do here is human to human. We are going to communicate and welcome them and wish them luck because, of course, we don't want to see the country fail and la-di-da and all that stuff. And these guys came in and they saw these notes and they were like, what a bunch of losers. We are here to fleece the place. We are here to betray the country. We're here to sell our fellow Americans to our enemies. And they're leaving us these notes like, good luck with selling us to the Russians. Ha ha ha, what a bunch of suckers. I hate these bastards. And it probably then boiled over into rage. I'm not sure that Stephanie Grisham doesn't remember these notes as being poison pen letters because this is just another case of projection. That's the note I would have left for my successor. I hate everybody. I hate Obama people. It can't possibly be the case. They must. I also think that there's maybe some imposter syndrome, some inferiority complex perhaps playing into this. They can't accept that the Obama administration staffers might genuinely, as humans, as Americans, be wishing, at least a modicum of personal success. Even these nice notes like this office, whoever occupies this office for me, this has got the best view. It's so beautiful here. Treasure this office. That's the last one I saw from whoever it was that occupied the East Wing office that Stephanie Grisham moved into first, although there's some question as to what she was originally doing day one in the White House, as it turns out. But anyway, you leave them this lovely note, and I wonder whether the Trump people got them and thought either this can't be right, either these people are suckers and there's no way they would be wishing us well, or these guys, look at these condescending bastards. How dare they leave me this note dripping with, oh, I love you, you're fantastic, you'll do great, America, blah, blah, blah. I would never leave such a note. So it can't be the case that these were left in good faith. This has to be a sarcastic and I guess probably above my head poison pen note, and I resent them talking down to me and how dare they. And then over the years, it could have turned into, this was some horrible, mean, malevolent act. Or, I guess the other thing you have to hold out as a possibility is, of course, that had nothing to do with anything. And Stephanie Grisham decided at the spur of the moment that was the sort of thing that she could tell Trump supporters Obama people did, and they would believe it because culture wars, and they just want to stoke that. But I think there might be a little bit of both at play. But I'm watching all these people share these lovely notes, And I'm starting to get, maybe it's just, I'm projecting onto this whole scene. I'm starting to think, you know what? We knew what these people were when they came into office. And there were plenty of people rolling their eyes and groaning. Why is Obama treating him like a grown-up? Why is he pretending he's going to be able to succeed him as president of the United States? But we all knew why Obama had to do that. You had, at that point in time, I guess the adult thing to do was to say, it is possible that Donald Trump will have nothing to do with running his own administration and competent people will come in. I don't know where he's going to get them, but we need to at least pretend for the moment. But it was pretty quickly obvious that had been a wasted effort. Actually, before Obama left the White House that day, we could see that the Trump people, because culture war, were not accepting these overtures. And we should have guessed that somewhere down the line they would make this complaint. I just didn't think it would take 3 years. Anyway, Greg Dworkin is here. Greg, you will fail. I just wanted to
Absolutely.
let you know.
I've already failed. It's going to be a relatively brief stay for me today because of the construction here.
They will fail.
Abby and I will be barking at the Masons in their Freemasonry dress and secret handshakes and stuff. It's another one of those days. But don't forget, Stephanie Grisham has been with the Trump campaign since 2016, and she spent a brief period of time in Melania Trump's part of the White House. So basically, I don't care to you.
Yeah, that's true. That was probably her.
That was probably her.
Or at least, she didn't say, oh, you can't wear that.
Yeah,
you crazy?
Basically flat out lies all the time. That's the thing about it. But let's just cut to the chase and get to the big story today.
All right, Chase.
Gordon Sondland is sitting down right now as we speak, getting ready to give his statement, where he's going to say, and I quote, "They knew what we were doing and why. Everyone was in the loop. It was no secret." And according to the NBC version of it, Ambassador to the EU, Gordon Sondland, is pointing the finger at Trump, Pompeo, and Bolton in explosive public testimony on Wednesday, in which he says explicitly there was a quid pro quo, linking a White House visit for Ukraine's president to investigations into Trump's political opponents. And he's basically going to say, I didn't want to do it. They made me do it. I had to talk to Rudy. I hate Rudy. I didn't want to talk to Rudy, but I had to talk to Rudy because everybody knew that this is what Trump wanted. Oh, by the way, Perry was in on it, too.
Oh, yeah. Well, good. I'm glad somebody's finally naming him.
Yep.
All right. Go. All right. Yeah. I don't want to, can't cheer for Gordon Sondland.
Right.
He's not a good guy because of this.
Anyway, he's going to talk about what an honor it was for him to be chosen out of a crowd of, anonymous people. Somehow or other, they gave it to him. And he's complaining because he wanted to get information from the State Department to prepare for this, and the State Department wouldn't let him look at his own notes.
Well, that's par for the course. Okay. I mean,
all right. So let me read directly from his statement. First,
right.
Secretary Perry, Ambassador Volker, and I worked with Mr. Rudy Giuliani on Ukraine matters at the express direction of the President of the United States. Nothing ambiguous about that. We did not want to work with Mr. Giuliani. Simply put, we played the hand we were dealt. We all understood that if we refused to work with Mr. Giuliani, they must be using New York Times stuff, because they don't just say that bastard Rudy. They just say Mr. Giuliani.
Yes.
We would lose an important opportunity to cement relations between the U.S. and Ukraine, so we followed the president's orders. Although we disagreed with the need to involve Mr. Giuliani, we didn't believe his role was improper at the time. Still, given what we knew at the time, what we were asked to do did not appear to be wrong. Let me say precisely because we didn't think we were engaging in improper behavior, we made every effort to ensure the relevant decision makers at the National Security Council and State Department knew the important details of our efforts. The suggestion that we were engaged in some irregular or rogue diplomacy is absolutely false. All right, so he's not going under the bus without dragging them in. He's not going to say, okay, you guys go ahead and make me the fall guy. Tell everybody it was a rogue operation and I was doing it all on my own. He says, I have now identified certain State Department emails and messages that provide contemporaneous support for my view. These emails show the leadership of State, NSC, and the White House were all informed about the Ukraine efforts from May 2019. Remember, the phone call was in July, so it didn't start with the July phone call, until the security aid was released in September, on September 11th of all times.
Yes.
I will quote from some of those messages with you shortly. And as I testified previously, Mr. Giuliani's requests were a quid pro quo for arranging a White House visit for President Zelensky. Take that, Jim Jordan. No, he didn't say that, but he may as well. Mr. Giuliani demanded that Ukraine made a public statement announcing investigations of the 2016 election DNC server in Burisma. Mr. Giuliani was expressing the desires of the president, and we knew these investigations were important to the president. So Trump did it. There's a quid pro quo. Everything else is inoperative. And the statement goes on to cover himself and say, I was acting in good faith. And it's 24 pages. That's the first 7. And what's interesting is, of course, the New York Times this morning had a big bombshell story just before this, preceding this big bombshell story. Sondland kept Pompeo informed on Ukraine pressure campaign. The diplomat at the center of the impeachment inquiry looped in the Secretary of State at key moments as American officials pushed for investigations sought by President Trump. So they all did it. What's the response? Here, David Drucker reporting in the Washington Examiner. It doesn't matter. House Republicans embrace quid pro quo. After saying they couldn't accept the quid pro quo, House Republicans say it no longer matters if President Trump tied $400 million in military aid earmarked for Ukraine to Kyiv, agreeing to investigate Democratic rival Joe Biden. The evolving Republican position on impeachment comes as key witnesses testify publicly about allegations Trump abused his power in dealings with Ukraine, with some government officials lending credibility to accusations by House Democrats that the president demanded a quid pro quo. Well, of course, now we know that in fact is true. Even if the Democrat fact pattern that they've laid out turns to be 100% correct, it doesn't matter, a second House Republican said, requesting anonymity to speak candidly. The law permits the president to withhold money. It's gone from this quid. There's no quid pro quo, said a House GOP aide, to there's a quid and a quo, but not a pro, to even if there was, it's not that bad. This is just how things are done. To, okay, you can say it's bad, but it's not impeachable. So I just want you to know we've arrived at where everybody said we were going.
Yes.
Okay? So in a nutshell, your abbreviated news roundup is that's what's going on.
Okay.
All right. Now everybody gets to watch the theater of this, which changes the written word because it's just that much more dramatic. Why is it so important and dramatic that Sondland says this, even though we all know this? Because the media is looking for a reason to pivot and say, oh, my gosh, this is terrible.
Okay.
And they're going to play it up every way they possibly can. I'm just telling you, media is like a weird animal.
Yes.
But for some reason, they don't permit themselves to tell us the truth until something happens so egregious that even the Chuck Dodds of the world say, well, I guess there was a quid pro quo. I guess there was.
I guess so.
I guess there was. He says there was. Now we can say there was.
Yes.
In other words,
that's true.
If Gordon Sondland said Mike Pompeo's lying,
they would have
as he
to say
did
that.
with the interview with Martha Raddatz, for example, who said, I know nothing about this. If Gordon Sondland says it under oath, now we can say Mike Pompeo was lying. Until then, even though we all knew it, we couldn't permit ourselves to say it. So what Gordon Sondland is a permission structure object for the media to handle this differently. And that's why his testimony is so important, not because it tells us stuff we didn't already know. It's really annoying when you know he needs to be impeached and the media keeps saying, well, this morning's is the most important in the whole, because it's pivotal. Everything depends on. No, it doesn't. Pivot. But what it does mean is that you think it does, and so you're going to handle it that way. Fine. Go ahead. Make it a big story.
Okay. Well, I guess that they will.
Fine with me.
By the way, I think serious error in the article there offering anonymity to a Republican congressman on that statement. I mean, there's
terrified of him.
There's anonymity available for
Lieutenant
people
Colonel Vinland had to be protected by the Army.
Yes, well, I can see why they're terrified. It's just, I mean, they really shouldn't have done it. That wasn't even information that had been shared behind.
I'm not talking to you.
Yeah,
it's all about access.
This isn't about a congressman who was waylaid by a reporter on his way out of a closed door strategy session.
Or interviewed in front of a helicopter.
Yeah, this is essentially the official Republican position, but B, I mean, what he had to say wasn't confidential information at all. That was just really malpractice right there. I mean, I know they wanted the quote,
right? But it's just just indicative of everything that's going on in Washington. Yeah. So how is all of this playing? I'm trying to get this all in lightning round fashion, just in case I have to leave real quick.
Okay.
Starts barking.
I'm going to start
barking. We have 2 new polls from yesterday, giving you an idea. And this is one of those glass half full, glass half empty kind of reading. Okay. This is from 538. Most Americans think Trump committed an impeachable offense. And what it says is while 42% of respondents say they're absolutely certain about their position on impeachment, about a quarter still say they're either somewhat or not at all certain about whether Trump committed an impeachable offense. Within this narrower universe of people who haven't fully made up their mind, respondents who said they don't believe Trump's behavior is impeachable were especially likely to say they're not certain about their position. It's important not to read too much into this, says the report, since we're talking about a relatively small slice of the public, but it suggests there's still room for movement among at least some people who aren't yet on the Democrat side. And NPR Marist had a poll yesterday that says impeachment hearings won't change their minds, but 65% of Americans say they can't imagine any information or circumstance during the impeachment inquiry where they might change their mind. Of course, they didn't imagine Solomon throwing everybody under the bus. But more important to me, 30% say yes, it's possible. So focusing on the 65%, the bigger chunk, is like trying to persuade the 65%, which is a waste of time. Persuasion isn't for the 65, it's for the 30. And 30% is a lot. If you tell any political strategist that I've got a close race here, but 30% of the public is still in play, can you work with that? They'd say, yeah, this is fantastic.
Yeah.
I'm used to 5. So 30, yeah, we can do something with this. And so, I am not in the camp. Maybe I'm a minority of people and pundits who say this, but I think the public is still ready to move on this, depending upon what they hear. And this morning's is exactly the kind of thing that they need to hear in order to do it. They need to give themselves permission structure just the way the media does. So we'll see what happens with that. Anyway, so Ambassador Sondland to point finger at Trump, Pompeo, and Bolton. And Bolton's trying to play the good guy, the smart guy, the one who knows everything, who's holding back the information. But in fact, Sondland's pointing the finger at him. So let's see how easy it is for Bolton to continue to not testify.
Yeah. Well, that'll change his book a little bit, too.
So there you have it. That's everything that's going on right now.
Okay. Nothing about Pam Bondi in her new job?
Well, she's got a new job defending the president, and she called Sondland the ambassador to Ukraine, which, of course, he's not.
Right.
And so that's not going so well. And don't forget, what they did is they hired somebody who basically took a bribe from Trump to defend Trump giving out bribes.
Yeah. Well, I thought that was a good pairing.
That was a good pick. So she really knows what's going on, so she's in a good position to talk about it, I suppose.
Remember, Trump supporters love that position. I am the only one. Only I can fix it because I know from the inside what it's like to be bribed by Trump, and that's not it.
Right.
So I guess that works.
Okay, so what are they going to do?
I don't know.
Are they going to, as Paul Begala says, are they going to attack a guy who gave Trump's inaugural $1 million as a never-Trumper?
Yes.
Are they going to argue that Sondland's testimony in sync with all the other one is an effort to save his skin? Or are they going to say it's all justified? That guy at Fifth Avenue, he needed to be shot.
He doesn't live in New
York. He's got away with words there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think all of the above. I saw this morning that yesterday Devin Nunes spent time denying that the Republican witnesses were Republican witnesses. So I don't know what they could do any of those things. And
Neil Katyal says, I've read the Sondland testimony, and boy, is it devastating to Trump. Remember, this is the one guy Trump pointed to exonerate him. Excerpts and quick analysis below. And let's just talk briefly about what happened yesterday. Lieutenant Colonel Vinland comes in, and along with Pompeo's aide, Mike Pence's aide, so it's the vice president's office, as well as the Army and Trump's White House, that's what Vinland represents, both in on the call. So they say, the call, basically the transcript is more or less correct, but there's some important, things about this, and we found it distressing, and we went and talked to the lawyers because we didn't like what we were hearing. And then later in the afternoon, Volker, as many people put it, was, look, I was in the car, I could see out the window, and I knew it was going on, but I didn't really know where we were going. So you have to forgive me because I just couldn't make the connection. This is the impossible part of what he's saying. I knew that they wanted Burisma investigated, but I had no idea that meant Biden until later. Whereas Morrison, who is the professional GOP staffer, who was on the National Security Council, said, I reported the call to the lawyer because I didn't see anything wrong with it. Remember, these are the Republicans' witnesses. I was just so worried about it, I thought I had to call the lawyer because I call the lawyer all the time about stuff I don't worry about.
Right. What time is it, lawyer? I just wanted to call you and find out.
Yeah, exactly. So remember, these were the GOP witnesses who were supposed to exonerate Trump, and it went so badly that by the end of the hearing, Devin Nunes and the Republicans were saying, well, the Democratic witnesses here really aren't exactly what we had in mind. They won't let us call our own witnesses. They were saying that. These are the witnesses you guys asked for. And Sondland is one of the GOP exonerators, except that's not going to happen. So, again, that's the whole context of what's going on. I see the guys arriving, so I'm going to have to sign off early. But I just wanted to give you and the audience an idea of what's going on, and there's going to be a lot of popcorn today.
All right. Well, I am
permission structure. That's your word for the day.
Okay. I think we'll have to see. Will he say the word lie outright? Did you see that in the testimony? He used the L
said
word.
Everyone was in the loop.
All right. Well, that's not the L word.
And by the way, I don't like Rudy.
Okay. Well, in order for the press to say lie, they have to be quoting somebody. So I hope he'll get around to using the word.
Well, he does say it was a quid pro quo, so they do get to say that.
They can use that. Right.
They say it was because of the president's desires. They could use that.
Desires.
He didn't want to work with Giuliani, but he felt he had to, given Trump's orders. They'll say that. Oh. So good luck. Take care.
Thank you.
And Edward R. Murrow is feeling a little bit more comfortable there as he rolls around in where he is.
Yeah, wherever he may be. Okay. We don't know how he was buried. So, okay.
No, but I have an idea of how he'd vote. Take care, and I'll talk to you tomorrow. Or we can sum all this up.
Very good, unless, of course, you have more work going on. But
I'll still get on for worst case. I'll get on at least give you an abbreviated what's going on. But hopefully the work outside my window, which is what really matters, should be done by tomorrow.
All right, don't fail.
Okay, take care.
Good luck. Thanks very much, Greg. And all right, we'll check in again with you tomorrow. I almost wish we could just turn on the audio and listen in, but then I would be mesmerized and unable to speak, and so it would make for, I think, maybe not such great radio. But anyway, let's see. Michael Musson had a note here. I have to read through it and see what's what. He says the last permutation is, I guess this is the last one that's left to them, to claim that it was what does he say? Pro quo without quid. Republicans claim that there was no quid because the president, as usual, had no intention of paying Ukraine what it was supposed to receive. That I believe. I don't believe it as an excuse, of course, but I do believe that the president had no intention of honoring his part of the agreement. But that also doesn't matter. All that matters, for the record, if you care about the legal definition of bribery and whether we've met it or anything like that, the answer is yes. Short answer, yes, absolutely. The quid pro quo doesn't play a great role in all of this in a sense where you can show that if you show that the quid pro quo was frustrated in some way, that doesn't remove that doesn't obviate the basis for the charge of bribery. It just doesn't work like that. The bribery statutes, which may or may not be in play here at all, which I guess we could spend some time discussing if you want, but if the bribery statute were in play and really was the controlling legal, what do they say? No controlling legal, what was the last word in all of that they used for no controlling legal? I can't even remember. It wasn't precedent. But anyway, legal authority. I can't remember how that was phrased back in the Gore days. But anyway, the point is that all that really needs to be there in order to be guilty under the bribery statute is that you sought to make this deal. I guess you could be arguing, well, he never sought to make the deal because he was never really offering anything in return that he actually believed he was going to pay out to them. But again, that can be imputed to you as long as your target believes it. If you sought the benefit either through improper payment or the promise of improper payment that you never intended to really deliver, if you induce the favor or payment or official act or whatever, that's all that really matters. And the rest of it is just a waste of time, sophistry, if you think that's going to get you out of the charges. Not to mention the fact that statutory bribery isn't what we're aiming to prove here. I mean, we may take that on as an additional burden, but in terms of whether or not what happened was impeachable, statutory law has very little to do with it, unless you are seeking to impeach the president specifically for having committed a specific legal infraction. I suppose then you're going to want to prove that he did in fact do that. But impeaching him for the general concept of bribery, maladministration, and treason, essentially, won't actually, as part of the impeachment process, require meeting statutory elements. It's not a court of law. Impeachment is what the House says it is, and that's that. It's just, sorry, that's the end of the argument. I know that isn't satisfying for some of you and will be contentious for some of you, but that's actually the way it works, and it was the way it worked when you last impeached a Democratic president, but of course you won't feel bound by any of that. All right, so it looks like very interesting morning happening. Twitter kind of going crazy because everybody's watching the impeachment hearing. So we will, in the run-up to our first break, I guess, simply get set to take a quick tour of what's in pocket. A lot of it is, as I realize, a lot of it is previews of was going to happen this morning, and now that it's already happening, I suppose it's really not worth sharing those things because it's a little too late. However, just like yesterday, there's lots of background information. I don't know whether it will turn into another political science lesson or not, but I think good information that will help you understand, A, what's happening on the screen if you're watching with one eye, and B, how what happens today gets digested by those whom, for whatever reason, we turn to for analysis in these situations, and we'll see how much they missed by and how much they got correct. Wasn't the banner day yesterday necessarily, but we hope that they'll get it right by the end of the day today. We'll be right back in 2 minutes. Hi everybody, it's me, David. Let's change things up from the old fundraising pitch for just a minute and talk instead about how you can be a part of our show. If you've got a smartphone or any other electronic recording device, why not sit down and record a segment for us? Read us an important article and give us your take. Read one of your own original essays, or even just give us your commentary on something you'd like to share that's important to you. Then send the file to me at kagrox@gmail.com, and I'll try and work it into the show. Short segments, a few minutes in length, are easiest to fit in. And of course, I can't always guarantee that I'll be able to play everything, but if you've ever shouted at your radio or TV about something you wish was being covered, here's your chance to change that. Make the show your own. Send your submissions to me at kagrox@gmail.com. Welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netflix Radio. Keeping things, doing a little behind-the-scenes engineering here and bringing our reintroduction to the program in a few seconds later because of early delays. This, believe me, it helps in post-production and putting together the tape should we ever rebroadcast today's show. But if not, it's just simply a waste of time. Log it that way. Okay, so lots happening, much underway. Oh, yes, there we are. Thanks very much, Scott, for the production note. What the Al Gore formulation of it was, no controlling legal authority. I think we actually did stumble into that one at some point. I may have blurted out authority, but then thought better of it as, it wasn't better that I thought. I thought worse. I will fail, and I did fail to remember that one correctly. But yeah, I remember now. No controlling legal authority. All right, well, it doesn't matter. No one's going to use that formulation today. Anyway, I hope. I mean, that would be pretty amazing to stumble into that. Let's see. Other widely discussed subject of morning Twitter. Not terribly important because it was never terribly important, but Nikki Haley turns out to have a but her emails problem. She is the 957,000th Trump administration staffer to have such a problem, and nothing should surprise you about it. But in case you still think Republicans cared about communications security and operational security, they don't. Nikki Haley used system for unclassified material to send confidential information, reports Christopher Dickey of the Daily Beast. Why? Because a crisis was underway in which she felt she needed to weigh in for the administration, but she couldn't find her password for the secure system, so she just used her regular unsecure personal BlackBerry to do messaging and pass back and forth confidential information about a North Korean missile launch. Isn't that great? Couldn't find it. Well, the only thing that's non-obvious in pointing this story out at this point is that you may recall that some of the excuses offered up for Hillary Clinton's use of a private server in all of this, for some of her official business, was that the official system was A, not really all that secure, and B, clunky and difficult to use, and actually got in the way of the real-time communication that was necessary as Secretary of State. Now, Nikki Haley's not Secretary of State, never has been Secretary of State, but she was the UN ambassador, and, she surely felt like, oh, goodness, here's something I can do in this administration, I can weigh in on, I can look important, I can participate in a discussion. So she wanted to do it, and she learned the same lesson that Hillary Clinton learned. The official system is annoying and clunky and actually gets in the way of things. So she availed herself of the nearest help. Of course, a personal BlackBerry on someone else's unsecure server is actually a step worse, a step beyond what Hillary Clinton did, who had built her own private server and was at least employed the person and was presumably somewhat aware of what measures were being taken to keep things secure, or at least someone was personally, accountable to her for explaining and maintaining the security of the system, whereas, emailing on gmail.com or whatever it is, it's not like Nikki Haley can call up the engineers at Google and take them to task about these things. Anyway, I don't even really think it's worth, it's not that it's bad reporting or it's not worth knowing the story. It's just as a matter of how we spend our 2 hours. I don't know if it's worth going through the situation. You can read all about it. The basics I'll give you up top of the article. North Korea had just tested an intercontinental ballistic missile capable of hitting Alaska, and the Trump administration was scrambling to react. But it seems Nikki Haley, Trump's ambassador to the United Nations, had lost her password for classified communications. That's why, on that fraught July 4th, how nice, 2017, she was typing away on her BlackBerry 10 smartphone, which is amazing in itself, that in 2017, BlackBerry, sending confidential information over a system meant only for unclassified material. Haley was in a rush as she headed to her office. On my way in, she wrote, shooting emails back and forth with top aides who'd been with her since she was governor of South Carolina. She needed to make a statement. They were drafting it for her. She's commenting on it along the way. The next day, we discover what the problem is with their communications. In her emails, we find, can't find my password for the high side, she wrote. The stylistic suggestions and apparent explanation for using less secure messages was in a trove of emails recently obtained under the Freedom of Information Act by the watchdog organization American Oversight. So there you have it. There's more information if you wish to fish through the record and find out, for instance, what statute might that violate? What were her excuses for it? Why did she use a BlackBerry at all? Where have you been? What rock are you living under? I don't know. All this information is available. And, maybe we'll return to it if we run out of material. If we read everything else on the internet, we can come back and deal with this one. Let's see. Also much talked about this morning, and I think exhausted as a topic, unless we just stop and listen to the hearings, is the New York Times reporting by Michael Schmidt ahead of Sondland's appearance. But now, this is now old news, but this morning before the testimony began, it was hot stuff. Sondland kept Pompeo informed on Ukraine pressure campaign. So there you go. We'll see whether this works, We'll see whether people believe Sondland is really just spilling it all out there for everyone to see because to hell with it, I have FU money, I'm worth $60-something million, and whereas it might have been the case. Well, I don't know. He probably is, as a regular, real business person who's really done things, he's probably not afraid of Donald Trump and has some idea that, he doesn't really have the billions that he says he has. Plus, he's under restraint as president of the United States. He may be thinking, I just can't be destroyed financially. I can just leave this place and just go back to my stupid hotel business and continue to live a comfortable life like I should have from the beginning. But I got greedy and I got ambitious and whatever. So let me just set the record straight, make sure that none of this lands on me. It might not be true. And I guess that's the best attack, strategically speaking, I would imagine. The Republicans would do best by saying, aren't you really just trying to throw everybody else under the bus and walk away from something that you did that was terribly wrong, but they can't say that part, and blame everybody else for it. So it'll be interesting to see what they come up with, and the answer will be nothing. But I will be interested to see where we stand tomorrow as the last of the week's hearings begin. It may, depending on how frank Sondland is and how much of this is believed, I guess, we'll see. Tomorrow we'll have to start our analysis all over again. What will they be asking the witnesses tomorrow? Or does nothing matter once Sondland throws everybody under the bus? I guess we'll find out. Let's see. Things to catch up on. And I have to start thinking about next week, too. Like some of these things are new reports, so I'm tempted to read them, but they also maybe don't need to be read today and they're not quite evergreen, but they might make good material if we decide to, say, pre-record shows for Thursday and or Friday of next week being the Thanksgiving holiday, except for those of you in everywhere else in the world besides the United States, of course. But it's the sort of day that, certainly Thursday, that seems like a tough one to do a live show. Friday sometimes works, but anyway, so we'll set one of these aside, although it's very interesting. And I'll tease it with saying some interesting reporting about Russian hackers, but an individual Russian hacker. And remember that a lot of them were indicted by Mueller, but with no hope of ever bringing them to the United States. And I don't think this is one of them that were named, but a Russian hacker who might be able to give us information that could really actually get to the bottom of what Russia did hacking-wise in 2016, might become available to the United States after all. So we'll pocket that one for now, and instead we can use the time to catch up on some of what's going on in the Lev Parnas section of the universe. CNN has a report on this. I've got, what else have we got? Washington Post work as well, both sort of barking up the same tree here. Which one to go with? I don't know. We'll go with the earlier filed piece, at least filed in my pocket here. CNN reporters Renee Marsh, Kurt Devine, and Kara Scannell. Oh, I'm sorry. And another one who doesn't have a link, Erica Orden, is added to this story. Prosecutors in Giuliani investigation. Did you realize that there was a Giuliani investigation? Prosecutors in Giuliani investigation interested in talking to Ukrainian energy company. Why would they be interested in talking to a Ukrainian energy company? Reminder from my October 2nd tweet thread. It appears that prosecutors in the Giuliani investigation may believe that theory that I threw out there that I threw it out there because I thought all the evidence pointed to it, that at the bottom of the Ukraine scheme for Lev Parnas and Igor Fruman, and therefore probably for Giuliani because that's where he got his information, may have been nothing more than the interest in a get-rich-quick scheme. They thought that they could use the power of the United States diplomatic section to leverage away the competitive advantage that other players in the Ukrainian gas markets had, and that they had used to become billionaire oligarchs and themselves become billionaire oligarchs. That what they had here was the opportunity to use Giuliani's service to Trump to clear out a path for themselves to a $1 billion plus chunk of the Ukrainian gas market by running an old play, as we've discussed in the past, accusing incumbents in the gas market of various kinds of corruption and seeing if it leads to their arrest and conviction and imprisonment and therefore removal from the gas market, leaving a vacuum for them to jump in and vacuum up all the money for themselves. Here are the organized thoughts on the topic from CNN. Federal prosecutors in New York who are investigating Rudy Giuliani are seeking to interview people with knowledge of Ukraine's state-run oil and gas company Naftogaz, according to two people familiar with the matter, suggesting investigators have opened a line of inquiry into whether Giuliani and his associates sought to secure energy deals by asserting influence on the company, or in fact having the company's officers arrested or discredited. I would add to that. Prosecutors in the Southern District of New York have contacted people who associated with the company in recent weeks, said the sources, who asked not to be identified because of the sensitivity of the matter. A spokesman for Southern District of New York declined to comment. There is no indication of wrongdoing by Naftogaz, which is amazing. Naftogaz, or at least in American eyes, I guess we could say, Naftogaz stands at the center of an effort by Giuliani associates Lev Parnas and Igor Fruman and their purported natural gas company. Purported. Finally, this is the least consequential place that you could actually use this, but I'm glad to see them using the purported thing. Everything about Trump should be purported. Not here, but here they're willing to use it. So, Parnas and Fruman and their purported natural gas company, Global Energy Producers, Naftogaz was at the center of this effort to replace Naftogaz's chief executive officer with someone who would be more beneficial to their own business interests earlier this year. I'll add here, just as they sought and did in fact succeed, they succeeded in removing Marie Yovanovitch as ambassador to Ukraine and replaced them with someone who they thought would be more beneficial to their own business interests, but I don't know if it's going to work out that way. That wouldn't mean that if there had been a quid pro quo involved that you couldn't prove that it was completed and so therefore they wouldn't be guilty of anything. The fact that they replaced Yovanovitch with somebody who was actually so incompetent, well, actually, he wasn't incompetent, but I guess they replaced him with Taylor, who's not incompetent, but I guess for their nefarious purposes, he's an incompetent. We should have replaced Yovanovitch with somebody who was going to be sympathetic to our scheme, and we didn't succeed in doing that, and that's bad. But that won't help you in getting out of the charges. And everyone understands that when it comes to Lev Parnas and Igor Fruman, but nobody seems to be willing on the Republican side to understand that with respect to Donald Trump. The fact that you picked someone that just made the deal worse doesn't mean you're not guilty of trying to make the deal. Anyway, they pursued that outcome, that is to say the replacement of Naftogaz's CEO. They pursued that outcome, CNN has reported, around the same time they were working with Giuliani, President Donald Trump's personal attorney, to encourage Ukrainian officials to investigate Trump's political rival. You know who that is. You know why. They were also actively pushing to have the U.S. ambassador to Ukraine, Marie Yovanovitch, removed. An American energy consultant who operates in Ukraine, Dale Perry, described the efforts to oust Naftogaz's CEO, Andrei Kobolyev, who is known for his anti-corruption reforms at the company. So obviously you want to remove him for corruption, you see. But that would indeed probably be the best way you could do it. It might even be the most convincing thing to say, what are the odds that a Ukrainian oil and gas executive who is almost certainly extraordinarily wealthy as a result of being a Ukrainian oil and natural gas executive, how difficult would it be in this very corrupt business to accuse somebody, even somebody who came in on an anti-corruption platform, to say, not only is he corrupt, he's a hypocrite. Easy to believe, probably, in Ukraine. And they figured that might work. So far, it hasn't. So, let's see. At an energy conference in Houston last March, and I think we've read about it a little bit, Parnas and Fruman asked the senior Naftogaz executive, Andrew Favorov, not Andrei, but Andrew Favorov, if he would go along with their plan to oust the company's current CEO and become its head, according to Perry, that's Dale Perry, who is Favorov's former business partner. So they made a very attractive offer to this other executive and said, if you join with us and in ousting the CEO, we think you could become that CEO. In fact, we'd back you to become that CEO. I don't know if that is something that he would think of as valuable, but surely it's understandable. The idea that a ambitious executive would have the opportunity to become CEO, and all you have to do is a little bit of light backstabbing and lying. That might actually be a very attractive offer. Parnas and Fruman basically just flat out said to him, it says here, hey, to do the deals we want to do, we were not able to get through to your CEO, and we think the business needs a new CEO, Perry told CNN. Parnas and Fruman also told Favorov that Trump would soon replace the then U.S. ambassador to Ukraine and that an ambassador more amenable to their energy business interests would be appointed, according to Perry. That's something I'd like to check up on. I don't think we've heard any information on whether or not Taylor was any more receptive to Parnas and Fruman's business ideas. I think I'd like to check up on that. And I'm not sure we heard anything about that. Maybe that's a missing link. Although I didn't watch his testimony closely. I hope that they got to that. Maybe some of you who watched could let me know whether, that was actually very definitely discussed. Okay. Let's see. What they said was, and remember, Parnas and Fruman told Favorov that they would soon be able to replace the U.S. ambassador, which I'm sure must have been, they meant to be very impressive. I'm sure Favorov probably thought, well, Yovanovitch, they'll never replace her. She's an issue area expert. She's fantastic. But if these guys have inside information, or they may have hinted, we're arranging it so that she gets replaced. Maybe he believes it, maybe he doesn't. But when she's actually removed, he probably says, wow, those guys actually did have the inside line on this stuff. Maybe they have this whole gas thing, Naftogaz ejection of the CEO thing lined up too. Maybe I better join in and play along. What they said was, Perry continues, Dale Perry, not that we can, but they are removing her. And that has already been agreed to at the highest level of the U.S. government. And that must have been slightly frustrating for Parnas and Fruman because apparently there was an awful lot of delay in pulling the trigger on that one. Even Trump found himself frustrated because everyone around him kept saying, yes, sir, Mr. President, we'll get rid of her right away. And then they don't do anything. They were ignoring his orders. And he was like, what? She's still there. Every time complaints from Parnas and Fruman filtered up through Giuliani, Trump was surprised that he hadn't gotten rid of her yet. Anyway, Giuliani also pushed for the removal of Yovanovitch, who was recalled from her post in May. Giuliani has maintained he's acted appropriately in the interests of his client, President Donald Trump, and that's highly questionable, but stupid arrangement anyway. Perry believes Parnas and Fruman, who have no prior experience in the gas business, may have had assistance from indicted Ukrainian oligarch Dmitry Firtash, who we've sometimes referred to as Dmitro Firtash, who made his fortune being the intermediary between Naftogaz and Gazprom, the Russian state-owned energy corporation. The two men mentioned Firtash in their meeting with Favrov, according to Perry, saying Firtash believed Naftogaz owed him money. Firtash has been fighting extradition to the United States since he was indicted on what kind of charges? Bribery charges in 2013. Firtash's spokesperson told CNN Parnas was just a translator for Firtash, and the two have no business arrangement. And that might even be the case, or might have been the case, as between, well, for Firtash's understanding, but Parnas could have been going around bragging that his connection to Firtash meant that he would have financing for executing his coup at Naftogaz. People may or may not have believed that. I don't know. But it also may have been the case that he's just trying to distance himself from Parnas, and they did have a business arrangement, and everyone should know it. Also not mentioned here, of course, is that Firtash not only made his fortune being the intermediary between Naftogaz and Gazprom, but that the reform-minded previous prime minister of Ukraine, Yulia Tymoshenko, likewise came in with a reformist anti-corruption agenda, and whether or not you believed her and thought she was on the up and up is an open question, especially for Ukrainians. But her platform was to eliminate the use of these intermediaries between Naftogaz and Gazprom, and that Naftogaz, as a state-run enterprise, should negotiate directly with Gazprom, the Russian state-owned enterprise, and eliminate the middleman. There was no need for them. And since that's where Dmitro Firtash was making his billions, he didn't want that to happen. He needed to get rid of Tymoshenko, and indeed he did, accusing her, of all things, of corruption, despite the fact that she had, one office on an anti-corruption agenda. And, of course, now a new president in Ukraine, Zelensky, who was swept in on an anti-corruption agenda, likewise finds himself, possibly subject to the same charges, although maybe the Ukrainian people are too smart to fall for it twice from the same source. I don't know. Continuing on with the reading of the article, two sources familiar with the matter told CNN that Dale Perry's description of the meeting between Parnas, Fruman, and Favrov was accurate. The Associated Press first reported the details of that meeting. An attorney for Fruman declined to comment. We don't know which of the 15 was the one who declined in this case. An attorney for Parnas, he's the one with multiple. Maybe Fruman does too. An attorney for Parnas didn't reply to a request for comment. Now on to Giuliani's role. As they pursue interviews with associates of Naftogaz, prosecutors in New York are also investigating Giuliani's ties to global energy producers, according to a person familiar with the matter. The Wall Street Journal first reported prosecutors' examination of whether Giuliani stood to personally profit from GEP. Robert Costello, an attorney for Giuliani, told CNN, Mr. Giuliani had no interest in GEP at any time. This is quite simply a false story, and I am sure counsel for Mr. Fruman will say the same thing. Someone is spending a lot of time and imagination dreaming up one false story after another. We'll see about that. Parnas, Fruman, and Giuliani's activities have been raised multiple times in congressional testimony in the impeachment inquiry into Trump. Fiona Hill, Trump's former top Russia advisor, said an American member of Naftogaz's board, and by the way, why are there American members on Naftogaz's board, and shouldn't we be investigating them and who their parents are and whether or not they're politically connected? I don't know. But this American member of Naftogaz's board told her in May that a number of Ukrainians had complained to him about Giuliani discussing investigations and pushing to change the board of Naftogaz. Alexander Vindman, the National Security Council's top Ukraine expert, testified before Congress, and did so again yesterday, that the board member was aware of the effort by Giuliani to facilitate financial transactions. So I guess we do know who it was, right? I don't. I just don't remember it. Oh, look, Tymoshenko comes up in this next paragraph. Parnas and Fruman told Ukrainian officials that Giuliani was involved in their liquid natural gas venture. So he told Ukrainian officials that. They did. According to Kenneth McCallion, the former federal prosecutor who has represented Ukrainians, including Ukraine's former Prime Minister, Yulia Tymoshenko, he said, learned of the natural gas plan. Wait a minute, I've lost the track of this. Parnas and Fruman told Ukrainian officials that Giuliani was involved in their business, even though Giuliani's lawyer says he wasn't. And the report that Parnas and Fruman had told Ukrainian officials this came from Kenneth McCallion, former federal prosecutor who has represented Ukrainians, including Tymoshenko. This doesn't work as a sentence. There must be a typo in here somewhere. Parnas and Fruman told Ukrainians Giuliani was involved, according to McCallion. No, and it just said, kind of jumps to, he said, I guess, so he's represented Ukrainians, including Yulia Tymoshenko, he said, learned of the natural gas plan. It doesn't, okay, so he represents Ukrainians who have learned of the natural gas plan. I guess that's how that's supposed to work. And Tymoshenko didn't necessarily learn of the natural gas plan. She just happens to be one of his former clients, I guess. Just poorly constructed or poorly read, I'm not sure which. McCallion added that they mentioned Giuliani in order to lend credibility to the project. Interesting. Name dropping, an icebreaker, a door opener, like the surname Biden, for instance. Just odd that he happens to be sort of guilty of some of the same types of infractions of name droppings. Anyway, it's really not just about the Bidens, McCallion said, of their interactions with Ukrainian officials. It's really about the money. Aha. So, okay, yeah, the accusation here from McCallion is that Parnas and Fruman don't themselves necessarily really care what, if anything, Biden did in Ukraine. They just want to be able to use whatever tools they can get their hands on to make sure that they can dislodge officials who are raking up money that they want. Welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. Hopefully the timing, Roy, lines up correctly here again. And we'll continue with the reading here. In case I got cut off there just at the very end, what appears to be the case here is that there's an argument here made that Parnas and Fruman don't particularly care about Biden and what Joe Biden did or what Hunter Biden did. It's just sort of a twofer. They are interested in creating controversy that gets competitors in the natural gas business out of the way. Although they seem to be focusing their fire on Naftagaz, which is the major player here, and less so on Burisma, who appears to be a minor player, but whose role I think they were looking to usurp in all of this. But it hardly even mattered, really. But they thought perhaps the Hunter Biden, Joe Biden thing might weaken Burisma as the incumbent deal maker as between Naftagaz and public consumption of the product, I guess, the middleman there. But they knew that Biden and his case was important to Trump and to Giuliani, so they were willing to give them information or make up information as necessary in order to implicate the Bidens to keep Trump happy. Trump's leverage was necessary in removing Yovanovitch and possibly in the play for control over in Naftagaz. So whatever it took to keep Trump happy and available as a leverage point against Naftagaz and Yovanovitch, they would do. Oh, you want Biden? Fine. I mean, great. Double play for us. Get rid of another competitor in the gas market. Easy enough to do. They were concerned not so much with what Biden had done or not done as they were with the fact that Biden and others were sucking up money that they could extort themselves and extract from the market. And why have anybody else make money if you can remove them from the picture and suck it up for yourselves? So it's not really just about the Bidens. McCallion said of Parnas and Fruman's interactions with Ukrainian officials, it's really about the money. Prosecutors' interest in, I would say is missing here, in Naftogaz indicates they may be conducting an examination far beyond the campaign finance scheme with which they charged Parnas and Fruman in October. Always possible. Along with two other men, Parnas and Fruman were indicted for allegedly funneling foreign donations to U.S. political campaigns. As part of that scheme, prosecutors said, the two created Global Energy Producers and used it to donate $325,000 to a political action committee, America First Action, which supports President Donald Trump. Prosecutors allege Parnas and Fruman used the company to hide the source of their donation. At the time of the donation, in May of 2018, according to the indictment, GEP had not engaged in the liquefied natural gas business and had no income or significant assets. Neither, of course, did Fraud Guarantee, which was supposed to be Giuliani's client in all this, just sort of part of a pattern that these guys are involved in. Parnas and Fruman have pleaded not guilty. Naftogaz did not respond to questions for this article, but a spokesperson previously told CNN Naftogaz had met with potential suppliers of liquid natural gas. That's what Parnas and Fruman purported to be. And as part of that effort, met with Parnas and Fruman. A nonprofit media organization, the Organized Crime and Corruption Reporting Project, reported that Parnas and Fruman met with Naftogaz in May. So we've read some of their articles in the past as well. So very interesting to note that they corroborate that part of the story. Let's see. There was also reporting on this, as I mentioned, from the Washington Post. What was the date on that article from CNN? That's dated Monday, the 18th. It must have just been that one that I picked up in the morning, and then later in the afternoon, I picked up the Washington Post writing on it. Let's see, where did that even go? Got to scroll back a little bit here. There we are, Washington Post. This one filed Tuesday, so it was in fact a little bit later. Federal prosecutors interview Ukrainian gas executive as part of a probe into Giuliani and his associates. I think this largely tells the same story, but I'll see if there's any additional detail. Here's some developments. Tom Hamburger, Rosalind Helderman reporting this one. Not only are they interested in questioning the Ukraine state-owned gas company Naftogaz's top executive, but it's all set up. They're set to question him on Thursday, tomorrow. Now, about his encounters with those associates as the pair pursued energy deals in Ukraine this year. Those associates, of course, being Parnas and Fruman. The executive of the Ukrainian company, Andrew Favrov, an American citizen. So he's he's a top executive, not the top executive. So they're going to talk to Favrov, which makes sense. He agreed to meet with SDNY prosecutors to speak with them about his experiences with Parnas and Fruman. We know about their background. We can skip this part. Favrov's attorney, Lanny Brewer, not Lanny Davis, Lanny Brewer, said his client will, quote, voluntarily sit down with the government attorneys. Brewer declined to comment further. So did the SDNY spokespeople. The interest in Favrov, who serves as a top exec at the state-owned company Naftogaz, indicates that investors are focusing on efforts by Parnas and Fruman to secure business deals for themselves in the historically corrupt Ukrainian energy sector, while they were also assisting Giuliani's work in that country. Sounds like it tracks so far. Federal prosecutors have been examining Giuliani's ties to the two men. You know that they're charged with campaign finance violations. He has, Giuliani, referred to Parnas and Fruman as clients, said he was paid $500,000 to help advise a financial security company started by Parnas called Fraud Guarantee. We know, of course, also from other reading that he was paid this money by, Charles Gucciardo? I can't remember how his last name ends. And that it was likewise, to borrow Bolton's phrase, they're a bit of a drug deal, right? Gucciardi was paying $500,000, but he paid it in two $250,000 installments, but he was ostensibly lending money to Fraud Guarantee to pay Giuliani to serve as their attorney. But rather than give the money to Fraud Guarantee, he paid it directly to a Giuliani entity, but he paid it to Giuliani's security consulting firm, not his law firm, if any. And that's kind of weird. And it was supposedly a loan that would be convertible into equity in the company, but the company didn't have any clients, so why would a smart lawyer invest $500,000 in a company with no clients and no prospects for income? That part hasn't been explained. How a loan that's convertible into equity gets properly credited as a loan that's convertible into equity when it's not paid to the company in which you're trying to purchase equity, I don't know. Lots of questions still pending there. The two men also helped Giuliani's efforts, of course, to investigate the activities of Hunter Biden, who served on the board of another Ukrainian energy firm, Burisma. This year, the pair arranged a meeting between Giuliani and Ukraine's former top prosecutor, Yuri Lutsenko, who allegedly offered information about the Bidens after Parnas and Fruman were arrested, and notably, the Bidens were not, by the way. Giuliani denied any knowledge of wrongdoing on their part. In an interview, he said that he has seen the two men quite often and had no reason to believe that they are anything other than decent guys. They, after all, ostensibly paid him $500,000, even though that was really Charles Gucciardo. Favrov met with Fruman and Parnas at least 2 occasions this year, according to people familiar with his account. First time in Houston, which we mentioned. Any other mentions of later ones? One person who was briefed by Favrov on the Houston discussions, there's Dale Perry again, said the pair told Favrov that Yovanovitch was on her way out and that she was likely an impediment to their plan and so therefore was on her way out. Yovanovitch testified last week that she saw Naftogaz's current chief executive, Andrei Kobolyev, as a reformer fighting widespread corruption in the Ukrainian gas industry. So it would likely become official American policy that, what's his name again? That Kobolyev shouldn't be removed. And that would be a position that Yovanovitch advocated for, and that would be annoying to Parnas and Fruman. So one of the many reasons they wanted her out, I'm sure. Parnas and Fruman assured Favrov that Yovanovitch would soon be gone. Weeks later, on May 1st, they met again in Washington, where Fruman and Parnas again pitched the deal with Naftogaz, according to people familiar with Favrov's account. After the Washington meeting, Favrov was stunned when Yovanovitch was abruptly called back from Kyiv, as Parnas and Fruman had predicted, the people said. If she can be removed, then anything is possible now, Perry said in an interview with the Washington Post in October. Where's the rule of law? Where's the stability? A lawyer for Parnas, remember he has 15 of them, Joseph Bondi, we've heard of him, declined to comment. A lawyer for Fruman, Todd Blanche, didn't respond to requests for comment. Parnas and Fruman discussed Yovanovitch with Trump at a dinner for his top super PAC donors at the Trump Hotel in Washington in the spring of 2018, the Post previously reported. The two men identified her as unfriendly to Trump's interests, and the president, in response, suggested that she should be fired, according to people familiar with Parnas' account of the dinner. By the way, the account is from Lev Parnas, so who knows whether or not it's true or reasonable to believe. But it is pretty interesting that they throw that out there so quickly and get that kind of agreement. They imagine, I know nothing. I don't know these two guys. I never met them. Oh, yes, you have several times. All right, well, maybe we have some pictures together. Well, actually, they spoke to you and they said, hey, Mr. President, kind of out of the blue, Marie Yovanovitch, ambassador to Ukraine, she doesn't like you. She said bad things about you. Oh, yeah, well, she's fired. I'm going to make sure she's fired. Right off the bat. That's ordinarily, I guess I would say, with a regular president, I would say something strange is going on here. This can't be the case, that two random guys say something like this and the president immediately jumps to the conclusion that that person needs to be fired and begins trying to implement that plan. But with Donald Trump, he's so impulsive and conceited that I guess it's believable. The scope of the federal investigation into the business activities of Giuliani and his associates is unclear. That's kind of good, actually. I like open. Earlier this year, federal prosecutors in Chicago, pursuing an unrelated case against Dmytro Firtash, the Ukrainian gas tycoon accused of bribery, had come across Parnas and Fruman, offered assistance to their counterparts in New York. Right, okay. Last summer, Parnas started working as a translator for Firtash's legal team. I really doubt that. According to Victoria Tensing, one of Firtash's lawyers, you know all about her, Firtash has been accused by federal prosecutors of having ties to Russian organized crime and has been fighting extradition to the U.S. from Austria. Firtash denies wrongdoing, yada, yada, end of paragraph, end of the article, as a matter of fact. So a little bit of additional information that we were able to glean from that. But we'll have to keep an eye on that one. And as that investigation progresses, and I guess it begins progressing tomorrow when they meet with the American who sits on the Naftogaz board. And by the way, I'm a little curious about who is this guy and how do you get to be on the Naftogaz board. And would Naftogaz, for instance, be similarly interested in an influential American on their board in the same way that we're meant to believe Burisma was in having Hunter Biden on their board? This guy's surname doesn't ring any bells, but I guess a little background research on who might he be connected to politically might reveal a little something about how he found himself there. But I guess by tomorrow afternoon, we may start to hear, I don't know how tight-lipped the SDNY is going to be about this, but it's possible that by Thursday afternoon, Friday, we may start to have leaks that begin to indicate that Rudy Giuliani is himself in legal jeopardy, and that might begin to take him out of the picture. And so I guess the investigators at today and tomorrow's hearings in the impeachment inquiry may want to spend some time making even more prominent mention of Giuliani and his role in all of these activities. If he ends up finding himself indicted, it'll just be that much more trouble for them. Okay, let's see. Also, big news from yesterday that we didn't get to, shared with us by Kate Sherrill, was the news that, I don't know how much time you want to spend on this one. The guards outside of Jeffrey Epstein's cell where he allegedly committed suicide, died anyway, that's all we can really say for sure, have been fired. Guards accused of napping and shopping online the night Epstein died. According to the New York Times, the two jail staff members were charged with falsifying records and conspiring to defraud the United States, which is just so popular. Everybody's getting charged with that one these days. Michael Gold, Danielle Ivory, and Nicole Hong on this report. But what you need to know here is that these guys were essentially responsible for checking on Epstein every 30 minutes. And I guess they have a log book that you're supposed to keep so that you can, you're supposed to tell the truth and write it down every time you check on them. And then there's a log book and they'll check those logs. Anyway, apparently they falsified the paperwork and were sleeping and shopping online instead of watching him, and he ended up dead one way or another, depending on which theory of the case you believe. But that if they had been checking on him properly, supposedly that would have been more difficult, either for him to hang himself or for someone else to come in and murder him or God knows what. But not good news for them. But it doesn't bring us Jeffrey Epstein back, and I don't know whether anybody wants him back. Maybe there are people who thought there was more accountability to be had from him before he died, and so they might be upset by his death. But I don't know. I'll let everybody entertain their own opinion on that one. Other information not yet shared from some of the peripheral players in all this who may have been acting on their own accord, but who are nonetheless known to us as already being in trouble with federal authorities under the general umbrella of Trump-Russia problems. Paul Erickson Daily Beast reporting here under the headline, Paul Erickson, Russian agent Maria Butina's boyfriend, pleads guilty to fraud. Erickson admits he conned someone called only DG into wiring him $100,000 under the pretense that the money was for a real estate investment in North Dakota, when in fact it was not. Betsy Swan and Aaron Banco put this piece together. Paul Erickson, the former boyfriend of convicted Russian agent Maria Butina, who, by the way, I think is back in Russia now. She's been deported and sent back to a hero's welcome, has pleaded guilty to wire fraud and money laundering. Wow, that whole thing too, huh? According to a plea agreement filed in South Dakota federal court Monday afternoon. In a 2-page statement detailing the factual basis for the plea, Erickson said he conned someone identified only as DG. It's not DF, I would say Dimitro Firtash. No, DG. Into wiring him $100,000 under the pretense that the money was for a real estate investment in North Dakota. As part of the plea filed in the U.S. District Court in South Dakota, Erickson admits the money was not for a real estate deal. He also notes that he wired $1,000 of the money to a person called MB. My client, Paul Erickson, entered into a plea agreement with the federal government to resolve all charges leveled against him regarding the his business practices of many years. In pleading to 2 counts, all other charges will be dismissed, and this ordeal for Mr. Erickson will come to an end, said Clint Sargent, an attorney for Erickson. The case against Erickson, a well-known conservative operative who shuttled between Washington, D.C. and South Dakota, was separate from the one lodged against Butina in Washington, D.C. Butina, a Russian national who cultivated relationships with powerful American conservative activists, including Erickson, pleaded guilty to conspiring to violate laws prohibiting covert foreign agents. As part of her agreement, she has promised to cooperate with American law enforcement. What's that worth? She was deported earlier this year after serving a short prison sentence to her native Russia, where she received a hero's welcome. I wasn't just making that up. That's even linked right here in the article, so you know it's true. All right. Well, it's linked anyway. Erickson became involved in a relationship with Butina in 2013. As the Daily Beast previously reported, the duo dressed up as Rasputin to Butina's flame-haired Empress Alexandra during a 2016 birthday party. The over-the-top gathering included an ice sculpture of a bottle imprinted with the Soviet hammer and sickle from which vodka flowed. Why we would decorate it with that, I have no idea. But let's see. Didn't we hear the other day that somebody had to resign from something because another guy who once worked in the Obama White House was on the board of Amazon, and Amazon sold T-shirts with hammers and sickles on them? Well, the guy's been convicted. What else are you going to do? The couple who at one point lived together in South Dakota, although I guess everybody who went to the party should be indicted as well under that theory. The couple who at one point lived together in South Dakota, I don't think I knew that, in South Dakota part, had some kind of business together. The two were listed as the sole officers of Bridges LLC, a company registered in the state in February of 2016, though it's unclear what the company did or how it operated. Erickson was indicted in February on allegations that he ran a criminal scheme from 1996 to 2018, it's a long time, in which he was accused of using a chain of assisted living homes called Compass Care. Ugh, that's bad news. Prosecutors allege that Erickson also defrauded investors through a company called Investing with Dignity. Bad news. They claimed to be in the business of developing a wheelchair that allowed people to go to the bathroom without being lifted out of the wheelchair. I don't know whether I would say dignity is... I don't know. I suppose if it's done right, yes. But if you're defrauding people, then where's the dignity? The indictment says he also ran a fraudulent scheme that claimed to be building homes in the Bakken oil fields of North Dakota. I don't doubt it's bacon, right? Bakken, oil fields of North Dakota. North Dakotans, help me out with the pronunciation of that one. All right. We may be lost there for a while. As first reported by the Daily Beast in July, several people have sued Erickson in California, Virginia, and South Dakota, claiming he misrepresented himself and his businesses and failed to pay investors back, a lot like Parnas and Fruman. The Daily Beast was first to unveil Ericsson's business scheme in North Dakota, where he knowingly misled investors about owning a company there, according to a 2015 judgment filed in a California court. I guess I'll remark here how odd it is, how similar the crimes of very many Republican-connected people really are. I guess in certain Republican circles, you can just run around doing this stuff. I have a business. I don't have that business. You can invest in it. You can't invest in it. If you give me the money, you'll make millions. You won't make millions. I'll steal it. I just put it in the wide awake, get out of bed in the morning file, I guess. Two individuals who Ericsson approached told the Daily Beast that he swindled them into investing in a land deal he had set up near Williston, North Dakota. Ericsson told the two that he owned land there and would set up a transaction between two of his companies. One of the companies he represented while soliciting investments was Northern Plains Holding, LLC. According to investors and people familiar with the deal, the North Dakota Secretary of State's office told the Daily Beast it did not have a record of such a company connected to Ericsson. In a complaint filed in a lawsuit in 2015, one of the investors alleged Ericsson planned to use a company he controlled to sell undeveloped North Dakota land it owned to a second company Ericsson controlled. Wow, sounds lucrative. In an email in November of 2013 to a potential investor for the Bakken deal, Bakken, remember that? Ericsson asked for funding for what he called his, quote, new real estate development venture in North Dakota, which right away I'd be like, real estate development in North Dakota? I don't think so. I'm extremely proud of the work our development team has together, of our development team, as together we find new ways to service the office and housing needs of this new American gold rush, Ericsson wrote. I don't know about this rush. In the emails, Ericsson called his new business the Bakken Oil Fields and said it was set up to capitalize on the boom in North Dakota. Is there an oil boom there? Due to your interest in my work and in consideration of past kindness, I would welcome your investment of any amount you choose, up to $100,000, the email said. Ericsson garnered at least $50,000 from the email exchange and did not pay any of it back, according to the judge's decision in the 2015 case. So, there you go. Another dirty player in the wider Russia plus Ukraine plus Trump circle. More difficult immediately to connect, but certainly a lot of the same MOs there. And not surprising, just disturbing, I guess, at this point. All right, let's see. There are others, and I am asked here by the Warlock whether I saw the article that he shared with us yesterday, and I did see it. Let me call it up. I guess my first, I was a little bit concerned with this one, but I think the headline is probably what he was getting at, but I think I'll squeeze it in here before our next break. It is from the Washington Examiner, which is usually a bit of a warning flag, but I think maybe he sent this one on during Greg's segment the other day, or maybe where Greg's segment would have been yesterday. Democratic Party elites are panicking over 2020, but Democratic voters aren't. That's an interesting approach to things. The writer here, Kristen Soltis Anderson, once again, Washington Examiner, so I'm not exactly sure what angle they're taking here, but the headline makes it sound relatively plausible. If there's one thing Democratic voters very clearly want in 2020, it's to beat President Trump. What they don't want is an even larger field of candidates to choose from to achieve that goal. I guess that might be a little bit about Bloomberg entering the race. 7 out of 10 Democratic voters are, quote, satisfied with their choices for presidential nominee. And while half say they'd jump aboard the Michelle Obama train immediately if she were to declare, other possible late entrants poll significantly less well. Nonetheless, former New York City Mayor Michael Bloomberg and former Massachusetts Governor Deval Patrick both took steps this week, and I guess that was really last week, that they took those steps toward entering the crowded field. Bloomberg's initial constituency is small, with Fox News polling only estimating about 6% of Democratic primary voters would, quote, definitely flock to Bloomberg. However, even if his base is small, he at least has the massive resources necessary to gain ballot access in this late in the game. Patrick, meanwhile, I guess has little money and, a little bit more of a challenge in getting himself on the ballot at this late date. A little late with our music as well, but we'll try and cut out around the same time. Let's see. It's an interesting possibility here, and it does reflect what I think we're seeing in the discussion about it in the online spaces where we all spend our time, that there's a real mystery in the rank and file out in the rest of the country as to why these guys might be necessary. Hi, it's me, David Waldman, your host for Kagro in the Morning, and I've learned that I either need to update these announcements more often or stop saying that the announcements are brand new. What's not new is that this message, too, is a call for your support in keeping the Kagro in the Morning show on the air. My thanks go out to all of you who do support the show through your donations. The stats say that Kagro in the Morning fans download our program about 2,000 times each weekday, but our donors make up only about 8% of our daily listeners. Patreon.com, Patreon.com, makes it simple to make easy, secure, recurring monthly contributions to support our show. Patreon.com/KagroX gets you straight to our donation page. If we're helping keep you sane during the Trump era, consider what that's worth. $1 a day? 50 cents? One thin dime? We do about 20 shows a month, so pick a number, do the math, and head to Patreon.com/KagroX to let us know. Thanks again, everyone, for all your support. Welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. All of the reactions still streaming through on Twitter. Seems like I'm going to want to go back and review this Sondland testimony very closely. Sounds like everyone. A lot of people here hyping it up, saying this is a John Dean moment. That he's implicating so many of them. Other people are reporting predicting return visit to Walter Reed shortly. Very funny. The words of Patricia Donworth on Twitter. So be famous for just a moment, Patricia. Excellent. Well done. It just looks like it is going to be very exciting. Balance of the day as well. It should. I'd love to see what the impact is on the rest of the hearings for the rest of the day. Okay, just to finish off here with the examiner thing. There is an examiner-like bent to this in the end, but I guess the gist of the article is believable enough that it's only in Washington with its analysts who live in the D.C. bubble that there's this idea that, we're dissatisfied with our choices, or for some reason we think that the kind of candidacy that Deval Patrick and or Michael Bloomberg would bring to the picture is a rescue for us, but out in the rest of the world, they just don't see it that way. Let's see. Just continuing with the analysis here. And again, remember, it's examiner analysis. We have here, I'll just pick up in the middle here. When it comes to Biden, even though no polls at this point show him struggling against Trump, there's a sense that perhaps it's just not his time, a worry that he hasn't put up a better fight against the far left candidates in the field. That's very examiner-ish there. And a wonder if that will translate to an inability to fight the Trump machine. The online left, remember where you're reading this stuff, has never been particularly enamored of Biden, and to the extent political reporters draw conclusions about the Democratic electorate from this wildly unrepresentative community, it can even further feed a narrative that Biden is struggling. The liberals of his party never thought he was that great, and the centrists worry he's not doing well enough. Enter Bloomberg mania. The irony, of course, is that to the extent Bloomberg hones in on a more fiscally moderate slice of the party and draws that away from Biden, his candidacy could actually make it easier for Warren or Sanders to pull off a win. The Bloomberg play only helps the party's worried elite class if he replaces Biden, and the idea that Biden, a top 3 candidate with relatively consistent polling strength, is going to suddenly exit stage right seems far-fetched. There's also the fact that Bloomberg's socially progressive, fiscally moderate worldview is not as widely held among the general public as it seems to be among political elites. making his appeal seem much stronger to those elites than it might be in practice. Democratic elites have every reason to be unsettled about 2020, according to this writer, even though general election polls show Trump consistently only winning 40% of voters nationwide. The race is closer in key swing states, and the Democratic candidates have not yet experienced an assault by Brad Parscale's billion-dollar Trump machine. True. But at this stage of the game, the remedy isn't the larger field, and the remedy is almost certainly not candidate Bloomberg. I think I could probably even agree with that part. But okay, on the record, thanks for sharing that with us, to the Warlock. So are people right to panic? Well, the people reported as panicking, he asks this, so are people right to panic? The people reported by this article as panicking are the political insiders in D.C. Are they right? I don't see, nothing about them or their panic makes me think so. I don't want to think that they're right, that's for sure. So that's coloring my opinion. I don't know. Are people right to panic if we're talking about non-DC elites? Well, it seems here that the claim is that non-DC elites are not panicking. They're fine with the choices that they have. So, unless the theory is, well, everybody's panicking and they just have it wrong, then I'm not sure what to look at. The polls are not looking good, is the new comment from Warlock. But I guess, I don't know. For one thing, I guess maybe this is something you want to discuss with Greg. And for another, I don't know what exactly you mean. I think we have to be more specific. The polls are not looking good. The polls are looking good. Greg keeps reminding us, Trump cannot be considered the favorite. The polls say he's not. Of course, just a reminder, you have to be sure you're talking about polls that matter as the vote is divided up by states. National polls don't tell us very much. That point is certainly true. But it's not looking good in the individual states that he has to win in order to put together an electoral victory either. And there aren't any serious contenders for the Democratic nomination who don't poll better than him in those states. So, all right, we've now been offered Deval Patrick and Michael Bloomberg, and they don't poll better than other people do in those states. That may be because they got a late start, but time is what it is. There's not extra time because you're rich. If you're not going to make it to that threshold level where you can reliably beat Trump in key swing states, then I don't think there's going to be a great deal of interest in you. Let's see. Here's some detail. IEM are giving Trump 30% chance to win the popular vote. Yes, that is actually a low percentage. Remember, he is the incumbent president. I don't know if you could show me another incumbent president who a year out was being given a 30% chance only of winning the popular vote. I know that's more chance than we're comfortable with. We want a 0% chance. But remember that this is even that is a 70% chance that he won't. And he won't, in all likelihood. Maybe 30% is too high even for winning the popular vote, because there's very little chance you would think of that being the case. But I guess that's the threat of the billion-dollar Parscale machine. Is the idea is, if it works, is that they're supposed to drag very reluctant, never before participatory voters to the polls, a secret silent majority, if that rings any bells for you, that will suddenly show up for no apparent reason other than Brad Parscale has pulled at their heartstrings with fake memes on Facebook. But that was happening in 2016, and they didn't show either. All right, next comment. IEM gave Trump 30% in 2016, and he won. Yes, but not the popular vote. Is it talking about the same thing? Because if you're going to draw a parallel here, the first comment is IEM gives Trump 30% chance to win the popular vote. I say, yeah, but, I think that's actually a pretty low percentage for an incumbent president, extraordinarily low. He can't be considered the front runner. There's a 70% chance that somebody else wins the popular vote. Then you say, hey, IEM gave Trump 30% in 2016. Was that also, he had a 30% chance of winning the popular vote in 2016 and he won because he didn't win the popular vote in 2016? If that was the prediction from IEM, well, I would say got it wrong, except they were also giving 70% odds that he wouldn't win the popular vote, and they were right. He didn't. But he won, quote unquote, one election thanks to the Electoral College. But that was with a very specific and magical combination of mathematical results in 3 states in which he's looking terrible now. I am not so, yes, this is also the popular vote then. So, okay. So in 2016, IEM gave Trump a 30% chance of winning the popular vote, and he didn't win the popular vote. So I guess you could say IEM got it right, whatever it was. If the prediction is, I mean, if they're saying Trump had a 30% chance of winning the popular vote, they were saying, we are telling you he's going to lose the popular vote. They got that right. So, okay. Let's see. The next comment. If Biden was the likely winner, I would expect 5% on IEM. Wow. Not to be dismissive here, but I don't know if anybody cares what you expect. The guide star here is apparently IEM. What does IEM say Biden's chances of winning the popular vote are? I don't have that information from you. And also, who's IEM? I mean, not that I don't, none of that means you can dismiss them offhand. I mean, I literally don't know who they are, and I don't know who anybody is. I don't follow the polling, and I'm terrible with those names anyway. I'm likely to forget that. But if they're saying, if IEM was saying they're giving Biden only 5% chance of winning the popular vote, that would be something. Nate Silver is not predicting any state wins. Right. I don't know what that means either. Not predicting any, he's not making any predictions, or he predicts that Biden wins no states, because that can't be right either. I honestly, you know what? I recommend you take your time with this one and write it all down in a single email where you can express all of this stuff together, because doing this piecemeal is not helping me put an answer together for you. And maybe it's something we want to consult with Greg on, but I'm not seeing this IEM information as giving me anything to work with here. He had a low percentage of winning the popular vote last time. He didn't win it. The best I can tell you based on prior performance from IEM and not knowing anything else about them is that they're likely right that he also won't win the popular vote this time. And the only question is whether or not he can cobble together an electoral vote win, and things are not looking great for him there. And again, an incumbent president, a normal person, incumbent president, heading into his election for a second term with only a 30% chance of winning the popular vote is disastrous. That is not a favored candidate. And it likely would, I mean, it wasn't a favored candidate in 2016 either. And again, it was electoral magic. 3 states that swung his way with a total of 80,000 vote difference among the 3 states. One might almost think that some additional influence had been brought to bear in engineering such a rare miracle. But, of course, it's not yet been proven, and we just have to sit here and pretend that he's the President of the United States. Can I cite any precedents? Again, for what? This is not working. I'm sorry. This is not working as a radio exchange. Can I cite any precedents? I don't know. I'm not certain what kind of precedent you're asking me for. If the precedent, if you're talking about it being terrible for a president to be entering into his second term election contest with only a 30% chance of winning the popular vote, I would say the precedent is 44 prior presidencies. There isn't. I mean, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I can virtually guarantee you that nobody was doing worse or even in the same neighborhood on re-elect by winning the popular vote a year from their election for a second term and succeeded. I guess I would put that, if that's what you're asking me, then I'll put that one on you. Show me data that shows another person 1 year out as an incumbent running for a second term with a 30% or less chance of winning the popular vote, who came anywhere close to winning a second term when the votes were all counted and everything was said and done. That's on you. So I'm going to call this one to a close because doing this 6 or 8 words at a time via Twitter and radio just doesn't work as a format for me. So, okay, moving on and back over to what's in pocket. I can't decide whether this story is evergreen or not. Maybe we'll save that one for, although it's very enticing because it's juicy and about dumb people that aren't doing anything at all and are getting paid nonetheless. So, okay, we'll move on. We didn't share yesterday's, I shared the links with you, but we did not discuss the stories about whether, or the result of the Roger Stone trial turning into an inquiry in the House, specifically on whether or not Trump had lied to the Mueller investigators. And let me see, I think I had shared with you the links, but I didn't read you the reporting of Talking Points memo and maybe the Washington Post on that one. But probably we'd be better off, being that it's Daily Kos Radio, going to Daily Kos for that one. And if I can pull up yesterday's links at the last minute when I was putting together the summary of things, I grabbed the here we go. I grabbed our own reporting about it, and I think it was Laura who covered this for us, and I'm going to have to go. I didn't put it in my email to myself. My notes to self fail me on that one. And let's see. What's the fastest way to our link here? Looking at Laura's diaries or looking at the summary post that I did yesterday? Who knows how many things Laura has written in between then and now. Oh, that's news too. We'll have to get back to this one. But she's, of course, covering the Sondland testimony as well as yesterday afternoon's testimony. So I may have to scroll further back than I thought, which was okay. That makes it a bad plan. I should have gone to my own account of things. I'd have less clicking to do. All right, so we'll now belatedly roll back to yesterday's. Here we go. And here's our own Daily Kos reporting about it from Laura Clausen. House investigators want Mueller grand jury materials, and one of their questions is if Trump lied. The Trump Justice Department is frantically trying to keep House investigators from seeing grand jury materials from the Mueller investigation. That case is currently before the U.S. Court of Appeals for the D.C. Circuit after a lower court ruled that the House should have access to the information. House General Counsel Douglas Letter told the court that the House is investigating, in part, whether Trump lied to Mueller. Did the president lie? Was the president not truthful in his responses to the Mueller investigation? Those are quotes. And I guess pulled from CNN's reporting on the situation. But that might be exactly a reason for the current 3-judge appeals court panel, which includes a Trump appointee and a George W. Bush appointee, to get in the way of the investigation. Scary prospect. In the decision now under appeal, Federal District Judge Beryl Howell wrote that in carrying out the weighty constitutional duty of determining whether impeachment of the president is warranted, Congress need not redo the nearly 2 years of effort spent on the special counsel's investigation, nor risk being misled by witnesses who may have provided information to the grand jury and the special counsel that varies from what they'll tell the House. The Justice Department, acting fully on Trump's behalf, as is Attorney General William Barr's usual practice, is arguing against a Watergate-era precedent that impeachment proceedings are exempt from grand jury secrecy. Remember, we discussed this extensively back in the day with Armando, the 6E material. I think I should look at the Washington Post and or CNN's original source material on that. And I guess that probably is, that's probably exactly what I had in pocket for for this originally. So, all right. So she summarized it nicely. Let me jump into the Washington Post coverage on that one. House is investigating whether Trump lied to Mueller, its general counsel told a federal appeals court. So we'll skip the top part here. We know what they're now doing. The statement made saying that they are investigating this came during arguments over Congress's demand for the urgent release of secret grand jury evidence from Mueller's probe, with House lawyers detailing fresh concerns about Trump's truthfulness that could become part of the impeachment inquiry. The hearing followed Friday's conviction of longtime Trump friend Roger Stone for lying to Congress. Testimony and evidence at his trial appeared to cast doubt on Trump's written answers to Mueller's questions, specifically about whether the president was aware of his campaign's attempts to learn about the release of hacked Democratic emails by the anti-secrecy group WikiLeaks. Did the president lie? Was the president not truthful in his responses to the Mueller investigation, right? We heard that. Quote, the House is now trying to determine whether the current president should remain in office. This is something that is unbelievably serious, and it's happening right now, very fast. Letter is adding in his arguments. The U.S. Court of Appeals for the D.C. Circuit is reviewing the lower court's ruling that orders the Justice Department to disclose evidence the House says it needs, as it holds public hearings about Trump's alleged efforts to pressure his Ukrainian counterpart, you know what, to investigate Biden, etc., etc. Last month, Beryl Howell, Chief U.S. District Judge Beryl Howell, found that the House was legally engaged in a judicial process that exempts Congress from the secrecy rules that shield grand jury materials. By day's end, the appeals court, in a brief order, said it would not immediately release the documents pending a further order of the court. The court also asked the House and the Justice Department for more briefings and set a January 3rd date for another hearing. For weeks now, senior Democrats have been privately playing down the suggestion that Mueller's investigation is likely to be a part of articles of impeachment against Trump, noting that it's merely a legal tactic to get information from the executive branch to inform other investigations. Behind the scenes, there's been debate among Democratic lawmakers about whether articles of impeachment should include obstruction of justice allegations detailed in Mueller's report. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi of California and her leadership team, it's important to tell you she's from California, have wanted to keep the focus on Ukraine, according to 4 aides who spoke on the condition of anonymity. But some more liberal members, including several lawmakers in the House Judiciary panel, want to include charges surrounding Mueller's inquiry, which would be wise, quite honestly, in my opinion. If you lie to investigators, you can't just let that go. In asking the court to move swiftly because of the impeachment hearings, Letter said redacted sections of Mueller's report relating to the former Trump campaign chairman Paul Manafort were critical to the House's inquiry into whether Trump had been truthful. Letter also referred broadly to the recent evidence from Stone's trial concerning Manafort without citing specific details. At trial, former Trump deputy campaign chairman Rick Gates testified that Stone spoke to then-candidate Trump about Stone's efforts to learn about WikiLeaks' plans, and that Manafort directed Gates to stay in touch with Stone so that Manafort could update the campaign, including Trump. Stephen Bannon also testified at the trial about regularly discussing WikiLeaks with Stone. In written responses to Mueller's questions, Trump said he had no recollection of the specifics of any conversations with Stone during that period or of Stone's communications with his campaign. So it is likely that he lied about not having a recollection, but I don't know that, well, we'll see what comes of it. But I guess the testimony from the Stone trial is that this interaction did take place. That doesn't necessarily mean he's lying about not having any recollection of it, but it is good circumstantial evidence that he's lying about it. It is in his interest to say that he has no such recollection, and it's the most he can say without lying outright and saying that it didn't happen. So what we're saying here is that we have good circumstantial evidence that he headed for the only place that he would have wiggle room, and that is claiming not to have remembered it. But of course we have, the record is replete with his brags about how thoroughgoing and exacting his memory really is. But I think he's lying about that as well, so we do have that problem. Anyway, so this, in his answers, I guess, his written answers to Mueller, I do not recall discussing WikiLeaks with him, nor do I recall being aware of Mr. Stone having discussed WikiLeaks with individuals associated with my campaign, although I was aware that WikiLeaks was the subject of media reporting and campaign-related discussion at the time, according to the president's written answers, which obviously someone else wrote. Trump said Monday he will strongly consider testifying in writing as part of the impeachment inquiry at the outset of a week in which 8 current and former officials are scheduled to publicly testify. I didn't hear him say about it in writing yesterday, but once again, shiny object, he has no intention of doing it. In morning tweets, Trump said he might take up Pelosi on a suggestion she made over the weekend. The appeals court argued Monday, the appeals case argued Monday, is one of several separation of powers battles teed up for the Supreme Court. Yes, they're all going to be, they'll all be petitioning the court to take these up. Whether or not the court takes all of them or takes them all at once, we will see. Trump's private lawyers last week asked the high court to block a subpoena for his tax records from New York prosecutors and to stop a separate House subpoena for his personal and business records. And by the way, they succeeded at least temporarily in getting those, but I don't know how much panic there really should be attached to that. Perhaps we can move to that briefly before closing out the show. At oral arguments on Monday, a majority of the 3-member panel of judges, Judith Rogers, Thomas Griffith, and Naomi Rao, seemed inclined to uphold the House's authority to obtain the grand jury records. But the judges also raised the possibility of putting the release on hold and having the House provide a lower court behind closed doors a more detailed showing of why it needed to each disclosure that it seeks. Justice Department attorneys say the material should be off limits because impeachment trials are not judicial proceedings but a legislative function. That's a non-winner. In opposing the release, department lawyers have said a Watergate-era ruling was wrongly decided in finding that impeachment proceedings are exempt from grand jury secrecy rules. In court, Rogers was openly skeptical of the Justice Department's argument that the House request was too broad. She repeatedly questioned how the House could have been more specific when the underlying material is secret. Basically. They were quite clear in what they were seeking, said Rogers, a 1994 Bill Clinton nominee. If it is secret, how can they say more than they did? Griffith, a 2005 George W. Bush appointee who served as Senate legal counsel during Clinton's impeachment trial, appeared to agree, suggesting that at least House lawyers should get to view disputed material to argue whether the committee needed to see it. How would the Judiciary Committee be able to show particularized need without looking at the material? Griffith said. Rao, a former Trump administration official nominated by the president, asked Justice Department Attorney Mark Freeman whether it was even appropriate for the court to wade into the battle between Congress and the White House. Would that impermissibly involve this court in an impeachment proceeding? Rao said. No. Freeman said the Justice Department was not suggesting the courts have no jurisdiction even to consider such questions. In her 75-page opinion, Howell said the Judiciary Committee and the House, in determining whether to recommend articles of impeachment, are serving like a grand jury. In carrying out the weighty constitutional duty of determining whether impeachment of the president is warranted, we already read this part. Congress need not redo all the work, right? Okay. Howell, a former Democratic Senate Judiciary Committee counsel and a 2010 nominee of Barack Obama, said the need for continued secrecy was minimal because the Justice Department already had made redacted portions of the Mueller report available to certain members of Congress, and because the Judiciary Committee agreed to negotiations to prevent release of information that would harm ongoing investigations. And of course, I guess we can add here, a lot of that material was redacted because of the ongoing investigation into Roger Stone. That investigation is now concluded in his conviction on all counts, and I don't know exactly what we're protecting by keeping that material secret at this point. So there's also that. All right. We also mentioned that there was a stay, I guess, essentially, on the subpoenas issued or not subpoenas, but on the ability of officials to request tax and accountant information under New York law. I was maybe mixing up our cases here, but information from Mazars, information on his tax returns, etc. The Supreme Court has not yet agreed to hear the case, though it is the Trump lawyers' position that they absolutely must hear the case. The stay on the release, the delay of the release of the information pending a decision of the Supreme Court is entirely standard at this point. We'll just see whether it extends beyond the usual amount of time that it takes to decide on whether or not to take up the case and or remove the stay. We can discuss that perhaps later on. We still have Thursday and Friday coming, and Justice Putnam coming up next to bring you the West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. What's on the menu for today? Let's see. The Republicans don't care that Trump bribed foreign leaders for crass political gain that endangered national security, but only that he got caught. That's news, sort of. On the rest of the menu, Trump insisted the founders never thought impeachment was possible, but Hamilton in Federalist 65 sings a different tune, and he actually literally sings it these days.
From Daily Kos Radio on networksradio.com. You have been listening to the Kagro in the Morning Show
with David Waldman.
Internationally, the FBI wished it had acted quicker as China stole vital intellectual property for the last 10 years. And the Maltese police arrested one of the country's most prominent businessmen in a 2017 murder of Malta's most prominent anti-corruption journalist. Believe it or not, it happens everywhere.